देवी और सज्जनों, भाई और बहनों, आ गई वापस, आ गई। अब अमेरिका को what is the word for terrorize?
Keep trying, Varun.
अमेरिका को
Keep
टेरराइज
trying.
करके आ गई वापस हमारी यास क्वीन।
Oh my God, what's up? I have come back with so much energy. I feel like my colleagues are just like, please pack up and go back because we cannot handle this, like,
Is this what
nuclear
happens after you take a
reactor.
holiday?
Dude, I mean, I'll be honest about two things. This holiday was really long overdue. I wish I had taken it last year because you know what I mean? Like it's like when you finally take that break, you realize how
Yes.
physically and mentally exhausted you actually were. And the second is I've also realized that I am not one to take vacations for longer than like 5 to 6 days. I just get very restless and I want to get back to
Hmm.
work. So the next trip I'm going to plan will be nice and short, just a week and finito. But
Maldives.
good to be back, man.
Yes, good to have you back. We missed you. People on Twitter missed you. There's a specific super fan who missed you a lot, and she kept telling me,
Evidently,
"Bro, you can't do
this
this without her."
episode, this episode is dedicated to Mahima Seth. Mahima Seth,
Yes.
I love you, man. Varun, may not so much, but I definitely
It's okay.
think you are a rock star.
I will one day earn your fandom, Maima.
Until then, I am back, guys.
Yes.
So good to be here, and actually, I've been pretty excited about this recording, man.
Yeah, because
I'll be
weirdly
honest.
enough,
Maybe
while
the
you were away, there
yeah.
weren't any big developments. But suddenly, in the
Mm.
last 1 week, it's like
It's like
Bochar has
boom,
happened.
boom,
Bochar.
boom, boom, boom. Yeah, yes. Speaking of, what all has gone down, brother? Update us.
So lots has been happening, right? There's Byju's news, but
Oh
I would take
God.
all Byju's news with a pinch of salt because there's companies go through certain cycles,
Hmm.
and there's been a lot of articles kind of coming out about losses widening. You're talking about scrutiny around accounts, and I just feel like there's a lot coming out there. The company still running seems to be kind of going about their business. But what's your POV on like this whole Byju saga that's been like unraveling for a while now?
So, I feel like every quarter, everyone finds this like one company to pump and dump.
Yeah.
Like last quarter it was Ola, the quarter before that it'll be someone else. It's just like, then there'll be like furor over this Zomato Blinkit deal. I don't know, man. I think one regret that I have from my early 20s is just being so like easily manipulated by things that you read online and then having very like impulsive reactions to that content and without going into too many details or the tirade that I went on before we hit the record button, I'll just say that to folks listening in, just please form your own opinion, read everything, read publications, read Twitter threads, read whatever, but don't get so like easily caught up in narratives because every single person who is on the internet has an agenda, right? The person writing long ass threads wants virality. Your
Yeah.
publications that claim to be journalists read, at the end of the day everyone wants to earn their buck to feed their families and have a roof over their head. Like everyone has an incentive to make certain choices which may not be very clear to you as a consumer, and just invest in your own media literacy, man. Don't get so easily triggered. I think the thing that really irked me about this was the number of like stupid quick clickbaity reactions from
Hmm.
otherwise very like rational and normal people.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this earlier, but there's not a single company that has been aggressively cancelled in the past that has actually fallen totally apart from maybe like Theranos in the recent past,
Yeah.
because there may be like a valuation correction, there may be a PR push or whatever else at the company's end, but unless your unit economics are like totally screwed and you're genuinely running your business horribly, most companies can come back from whatever little things that were pointed out as a, I mean, not little things, significant things, but whatever things were pointed out as a part of this quote unquote expose on Byju's. But I don't know, man, I'm genuinely pretty appalled by the state of like media in our country.
And we also tend to call everything murky. Everything seems to be shady. But what you
Yeah.
don't realize is businesses require so many layers of conversations, interactions, negotiations that things do seem murky to a person who's only looking at it without the lens of like actually the intricacies of what's happening. And we
Yeah,
kind of miss that in some places. It's just going to seem that way. So I feel in many ways when articles are being written about this, those articles are supposed to inform on the intricacies rather than just play broad strokes and go times now on this. And I feel
exactly.
that ends up happening a lot more.
And just one to the point that you just made, I think obviously, like, businesses are complex and everything, and not just that businesses are complex, but also certain categories are complex, right? So for example, like, e-com has its own complexities, advertising businesses have their own complexities, rules, regulations, accounting practices, like this, that, and the other. But yeah, like, I'll say it again, read everything. I think there is a place for every type of, like, journalist, viral thread poster, etc., etc. But for your own sanity, don't get so easily manipulated by clickbaity things that you see online. And also, given that I've been in the general space of, like, startup and tech for the past 7 to 8 years, um what I'll say is this: there are very few people who genuinely do their due diligence on companies themselves, from a media POV. There have been so many examples of articles that have been published about companies where the article will say, "Oh, we got in touch with XYZ founder or XYZ company," and there have been multiple cases where journalists who have categorically written in their articles that they got in touch with a company or a founder literally never wrote to them. And there are countless examples of these in the past. So just, yeah, stay sane and focus on, like, your own shit, man. That's my takeaway
Yeah.
from this Byju saga.
Speaking of focusing on your own shit, we've had many retirements this week. People have said, okay,
Yeah.
we're done with this. Let's focus on personal life. Let's focus on something else. We've had Serena Williams,
Hmm.
Federer, and one person who wasn't mentioned as much, but I actually, one of my friends kind of shared that story. I thought it's interesting is that Rachel Haynes, who won 6 World Cups for Australia's women's team, she retired. So
Oh,
one more name to
wow.
kind of point out.
What
We
sport?
don't talk about women cricketers.
Oh,
Australia
cricketers, got it.
cricket, yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, so 3 retirees, and I think all their 3 stories and what they kind of put out there are so interesting. Obviously, Rachel's going to play this for long enough, and cricketers have a certain point of time when they retire.
Yeah.
But I feel that note that Federer put out was just so beautiful, and
Oh,
even the whole
man.
narrative for Serena about kind of moving towards
Yeah.
what she's doing ahead, and really coming back after after delivery, everything else was what a story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. One is like, what a story, and also it's just great to see them own their future, right? Because
Yeah.
I feel like the sportsmen of yesteryears, eras, were kind of tied to this image that they had, right? You're a sports person, and that's your pinnacle, and that's your peak, and
Yeah.
boom, over you're out thereafter. But it's just great to see these legends. I mean, Federer was the reason why I started playing tennis in high school, and though I
Mm.
haven't kept up with the sport in the past couple of years, that guy is like a masterclass in stoicism.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, especially the
Yeah.
matches, all finals in between him and Nadal, like, you just see on one side of the court someone who just has their emotions under control. And I mean,
Yeah.
I have learned so much watching his matches. But long story short, for me, I just think it's lovely to see the greatest of all time legends say, you know what, this isn't the end, and life's going to continue. And
And
yeah, just lovely notes.
And what I was hoping would happen did happen, and Arbaaz Khan started trending on Twitter, which is the best
What?
thing ever. You don't look,
Why?
okay, look at Arbaaz Khan's face and Federer's face; it's the same face.
Oh my god, guys,
Put them. You
disgusting.
don't know
Please,
this.
no.
The number of times this is a very like a meme that's been around for a while. By the way, the fact that
Okay, Arbaz
Arbaaz
Khan
Khan
does
and
not look like Federer. Federer looks like a, like,
guys, if you
huggable,
are
like
listening to this
Saint
or watching
Bernard.
this, please tell me you agree with me that Arbaz Khan and Federer are very
Oh my
similar looking.
god.
Just put those faces next to each other. We will put it up. I'm going to tweet this and say that I'm going to take a poll because it's a
This is
super
an
super popular
insult.
internet
You're
meme.
comparing Federer, the legend, the great Roger
मैं फेस की
Federer,
बात कर रहा हूँ,
to
टैलेंट की बात थोड़ी ना कर
Arbaz
रहा हूँ.
Khan. Oh my
फेस
God,
की
na
बात कर रहा हूँ.
shakal na akal. What is going on? No, but in any case, yeah. So Federer's retirement and Serena's evolution outside of
Yeah.
tennis was quite sad to see. Also, what
And
was sad was Queen Elizabeth is no more with us. The second, the
yeah,
third, the second, the second.
You know, I've had such. I've found the internet to be such an interesting place to kind of see how they deal with things. And if you look at what's the most shared stuff after her death, it hasn't been as many obituaries. There've been a lot. There's
A
been a
lot
lot
of
of
Harry and
conversations about the
Meghan.
fact that, yeah, a lot of that, lot of the fact that, just like literally everything that she also didn't apologize for, didn't really take ownership for, and
Hmm.
which happened under her watch per se. And just like so many memes, it has become a meme factory. And I feel King Charles is somewhere at the butt. My favorite one was that, what was this tweet which I saw saying, we can't deal with, things are getting too woke now, they're making a man queen. Which I was like,
Oh my
I'm like, how do you
god.
come up with this stuff? Or like,
Oh
there's a
my
super
god.
interesting video
Yeah.
of this, I think, Polynesian lady, her
Uh-huh.
son saying, "Ma, the queen died," and she's like, "Oh my god, Beyonce."
Oh my god, dude. Oh my
Doesn't it?
god,
But
that's
I'm like, it
amazing.
also tells you one thing, right? Is that as much as you might look at the internet as, okay, people make fun of anything, people say anything, is that when stuff happens, you
Yeah.
get the most broad-based emotion in its rawest sense on the internet. And I feel
Yeah.
that's something we don't talk about enough, and that you kind of saw across all of this, right? Is that it genuinely kind of just came out. And yeah, there is a king now. I don't know why kings and queens are needed anymore, but there is a king now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You do you, Charles. You do you. He's such an
Yes.
awkward and funny king. It's amazing. But in other news, what else happened, man?
What
Let's
else
get
happened? What
back
else
to
happened? On the
business.
other end of the spectrum, from kings and queens to Ethereum.
Mm-hmm. Ethereum
Ethereum
merge.
merge has happened. Both of us are not crypto bros, but in a sense, what does Ethereum merge mean? You know more than I do.
I mean, I literally just know that one sentence where, long story short, like the big ROI on this merge that happened on the 15th of September is just insane reduction in carbon emissions, and also the gas fees associated with crypto transactions. That's going to go down to 0.2% of what it was. If I am reading this, yeah, and oh, sorry. In an instant, the power consumption of Ethereum has dropped by 99.95%, an overall drop in global electricity consumption of 0.2%. So there you go. That's what I read up on the Ethereum merge. I understood none of it, and I don't have to because I don't own any of this shit. But yeah, fun tech pro news.
Yes, and this is news that you'll have a lot to say about. Is Puig? Is Puig? How do you pronounce it? Puig takes controlling stake in Kama Ayurveda. Puig.
Yes, while
Someone
you
please tell
butcher
me
the
how this is pronounced, guys. Come
pronunciation.
on, someone tell me. Jalasmi, can you please like
Yeah,
Google how it's pronounced? Because I'm going to keep saying Puig otherwise.
yes,
Pua?
this will be fun.
Pua.
Yeah.
It's Pua, I'm sure.
It's a pow. But in any case, they've taken a controlling stake in Kama Ayurveda, which is actually interesting because Forest Essentials, which arguably is Kama Ayurveda's, competitor slash counterpart, is owned by Estee Lauder, if I'm not mistaken. I know Estee Lauder
Hmm.
is bought into Forest Essentials. I don't know to what extent, but it's good to see this consolidation happen, man. And I
Yeah.
think especially for like luxury Indian brands, they the only way for them to scale is to have a global stage,
Hmm.
and that through this transaction, Kama, which is a great brand, by the way, that they're able to have a global stage is absolutely fantastic. And this Pui slash Puig or whatever the hell it
No,
is,
it's Puig.
um,
Jalasmi, thank you for letting us
like
know. It's
it's
Puig,
it's
as in
pig.
twig. Puig.
Oh, like
Puig.
oh, like Puig. Got
Puig.
it.
Puig.
Uh, got it.
I someone think Pua was better, but okay, Puig.
Yeah, saying it 10 times isn't change the name, Varun. Just letting you know. Just letting you know. But by the way, in May, we discussed this briefly, but they also bought this really cool perfume brand called Byredo, which is like a cult. It's like the Le Labo. I don't know if you've heard of Le Labo, but we're going to talk about all the cool American brands that I found during my trip.
Lelabo.
Oh my God, what happened? And obviously, one big news from the past week is Mankind Pharma has filed papers for a $700 million plus IPO. Are you going to be
Yeah.
subscribing to this, my friend?
I think I just might try if I get some allocation. But they're a fabulous company. I just look at how they kind of built themselves from the time when they kind of came into the picture, and and if you think back to the time when mankind started off, it was largely a multi-scale, global, or like even local, like large-scale companies market. But they've really grown. I
Hmm.
think there's a solid business. They've done it smartly. I can't think of too many like broader bad moves. It's just been a solid
Hmm.
business. So definitely anyone who can should subscribe.
Yes, sir. And a quick roundup of other fun things. Patagonia founder Yvon Chouinard is surrendering
Mm.
his brand to fight climate change. This news was like all over my Instagram and all over my
Yeah.
Twitter, so I don't think we have to spend too much time on it. But great
Yeah, but I
move,
think
man. What are your?
it,
It's very on
it
brand.
shows that you're sticking to your values, right? At some
Yeah,
level,
yeah.
there is one thing to say you're doing this much, or you're putting this much money aside for charity or for just for like climate change, etc. And I feel this is kind of showing that you're taking that step further. And I feel the one thing which I saw online, which I thought was very pertinent in this space, is that it shows what you can actually do to take that next step. How can
Hmm.
you kind of take this towards saying, okay, you're a company that's built for profit, but you don't want to go IPO because you don't want to run into that space. But how do you kind of really add value to things is this. And I feel that this something which people, I think other companies should take a note from this as well, because that's the way
Yeah.
to kind of go if you really have to kind of fight climate change.
Yeah, yeah, and I know recommendations is at the end of the episode, but I highly, highly, highly recommend his book called "Let My People Go Surfing." It's such a nice, like, counter narrative to a lot of the other, like, businessy, jargony books that one reads. So I'll talk more about that later. But yeah, I think those are the pieces of news that caught my eye. Anything that we
Have you
missed?
seen Brahmastra, by the way? Speaking of
No, I
climate change.
haven't. And I haven't. Speaking of climate change, speaking of Vishnu, we have seen Brahmastra. Uh, Vishnu is our sound engineer, guys, who I love to trouble. No, I haven't seen it, but what are the reviews saying?
No, it's done about 300 crores in the first weekend.
That's
So
insane.
definitely that entire, like, and it's like globally, I think top one, top two movie in that sense of the word. Um, Reviews as always are like on two ends of the stick. But
Yeah,
Bollywood needed this, right? Bollywood really needed this. So and this is like a trilogy, so it's so definitely part two will happen, and people are super excited for that as well. I haven't seen it
yeah.
yet. I was hoping to see it this weekend, but I don't know if I will have the time. But good.
Also,
And
good comeback for like Ranbir Kapoor. He's been kind of dead for a
yeah,
while, right?
hasn't had a release except for Shamshera, which came out last in came out in July. So it's
Which
good
no
for
one
him as
watched.
well. Yes, and yes, we can go on. But we've just been told 17 minutes. And talking back to, I think Mahima was the one who told us long intros don't work. Sorry, Mahima, long intro has happened, but
But this
we
is a
have so much to talk
fun,
about.
long intro.
Exactly. 17-minute intro this is. But we're actually digging into things. We're digging into Mr. Beast, which is, I know, something which you read a lot, tapped into, and I have a lot of like info on, because I've been reading about him as well. You went on this really long Twitter thread on how retail is getting reimagined in the States and how that could, what that could mean for India. So that's also something we're tapping into. And why are there only brands I can't pronounce today? Beco? Like
Beco.
Biko Vajratanti, like Biko.
Beco, Beco, जो भी है, but we're talking about
Beko
that
and
and
so Beko
sustainable
just raised $3
brands.
million. We're going to talk about the D2C, the sustainable D2C brand Beko raising, and closing stories off with Adobe acquiring Figma for $20 billion.
With
I
a
got lots
B.
to say about that one with a B.
Mm-hmm.
Not a me, it's a B. And then recommendations and lots of other random shit. But before that, we got to take a break because this thing fast and we have thought a lot in the intro itself.
Hello, 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 everybody. It's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Cock and Bull, Saida Sriram Nivedita and Arbaaz talk about a Bangalore surgeon beating traffic by running on the road and Sriram's connection with Shankar Mahadevan. On Don Baika Kappa Aika, Avanti and Aparna give us their take on midlife crises and the desperation to try out new things and rediscovering lost passions. On Cyberpoint by Checkpoint, Shiladitya Mukhopadhyay talks to Prakash Bell. He is the head of security engineering team at Checkpoint Software Technologies. They discuss careers in cybersecurity and how to get started in them. On the Wire Talks, Siddharth Bhatia talks to Indian academic and political scientist Zoya Hassan about the current decline of the Congress party and its way forward. And on all things policy, Ananya Rao and Rohan Pai deliberate over the implications of releasing cheetahs bought from Africa into the Indian ecosystem. Once again, I would like to remind you all about our merch store. Go and check it out on the website ivmpodcast.com. There's a link for shop. Click on that, it'll take you to our store. Also, do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Please do spread the word about the show. That really does help us. It helps all kinds of podcasts. And do remember to rate us or review us wherever you're listening to us or watching us. That could also be on YouTube. Remember, we have a number of channels on YouTube where you can go and check out our shows. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week: Volvo XC40 Recharge, Heads Up for Tails, HDFC Mutual Fund, and TransUnion Civil. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Welcome back to Think Fast, where Jalasmi has just told us it was a 19-minute introduction, but it is fine. This is an introduction that was required because we've not had Yas Queen here. I'm just going to keep calling him. I should change your number on my phone to Yas Queen.
Yes. I am like in support
I
of
have a
that, guys.
question.
I am fully in support of that.
If you go to Abu
Will
Dhabi,
you say bye,
will it be
Queen?
Yas Queen Come on.
What?
What is in Abu Dhabi? Yas Island.
I don't know.
Yas Queen in
Oh
Yas
my
Island.
God, geez, Louise,
Yas.
Varun. Yes, now we know you're a 40-year-old uncle. But coming to the first story, which, ladies and gents, is going to be about a creator who both Varun and I really admire, as should most other people, because he's got his, business skills in place. I think he's a good competitor to the Kardashians at large. But we're going to be talking about him and, in fact, his manager, a gentleman called Reed Dashashashashar. However he says his last name. He has tied up with one of the biggest investment firms called TCG to bankroll businesses led by online creators. But before we get into this particular news, do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about Mr. Beast and the phenomena that is all things Mr. Beast?
So Mr. Beast is arguably the biggest YouTube creator in the world, right? And there are a bunch of really interesting videos on his story, interviews as well, which Colin and Sameer have done on the YouTube channel. You should definitely check those out. Even with Reed Dishusher, the manager, the separate interview altogether. But just like long background story is that he was this young kid who just started streaming online, and as a streamer he became massively big. And streaming content is how it kind of started off, stuff around games, etc. But really scaled up to what he has built is the modern rendition of taking YouTube and putting, like, I would say, all forms of NOS onto it. Because he literally recreated okay, forget the name
Squid
of the show.
Games.
What are the Squid Games?
Yeah.
And he's done stuff like, I gave a homeless person $1 million, or $10,000, $1 million. And the most interesting thing, and I read this recently, is that he spends on an average of $30 million a month on his YouTube videos. And he's not making money. And this is his line. He doesn't make money to make money. He makes money to make more videos. So he actually spends all the money he makes on videos, on making those videos. He has this huge industrial facility. Small town America, or a small city America, a large number of people in that city now are employed by him. Small side note, the person who actually handled his business operations and still does is his mother. So it's like one of those,
No way. Wow.
He went to his mom
We've
saying,
got
"Mom,
a
can you just handle
super
this for
fan
me?"
in the house. That's
Yes.
amazing.
And it's so refreshing to see someone who's really built something at scale and has figured a way to kind of always up the ante week on week, and also figure ways to kind of diversify, right? He had this whole Mr. Beast bars business, because in the States, especially the energy bar business is great. And I feel, if I remember right, one of the earlier ones didn't do well, but then really worked on the taste, and that really happened. But whenever even he does a launch, it's like he's thinking content. So I think a lot of the YouTubers, creators got a mystery box with the bars in it, and there was stuff happening like in a very Mr. Beast style kind of a thing. And now, obviously, with the recent launch of his Mr. Beast Burgers chain, there were a couple of thousand people in a mall for the opening. If you see the video online, it's insane. So
It's insane.
again, I can keep going on and on, but what are your points as well?
Yeah, so coming back to the story that prompted this particular topic. So his so Mr. Beast, whose actual name is Jimmy Donaldson, the whitest
Yeah.
name one could come across. His manager has obviously teamed up with this fund called TCG,
Mm.
and I think what I really liked about the story was just the underlying thesis. So if you think about it, right, building a media company today is like not just impossible. Some would argue it's not even worth it, because with a lot of media companies, you're sort of stuck in between two business models, right? Advertising or subscription, or a permutation and combination of the both. And from whatever I could gather from this article, a lot of their thesis is essentially how do you take these mini media empires, which in today's day and age are creators, and really help them build product lines and build businesses around their media reach, around their customer clout, and more. And in fact, unrelated but related, there's this other really good article that I read. I'll send the link to Jalasmi. You can add it in the show notes. But there's this lovely article about how what's actually working on the internet today is these micro communities that by themselves have enough clout to actually drive commerce. A great example
Mm.
over here being that oh god, I told you about this, the watch publication. What is it
Hudiki.
called?
Hudinki.
Houdinki, yeah. So, for example, like Houdinki is one, started out, as like a reviews platform for watches, and now the amount of business that they're able to drive is absolutely nuts. So, and you've got like countless examples of other creators, platforms that have leveraged their reach to to sort of vasten what their scope of work can be. When we guys were discussing the story, we also spoke about how, like, imagine the likes of Rex Woodbury, who basically is a like a blogger. Like, he just writes a lot of really great thought pieces on things that are happening in the world of tech. He has his own fund. Turner Novak, who is like one of the OG Twitter thread creators and is actually really funny on Twitter, and again just writes really really well. He has his own VC fund now. You mentioned that 20 VC guy who also has his own VC fund now. So I think a lot of what seems to be happening is, and I'm going to segue into another point in just a second. But a lot of what seems to be happening is people who have clout are trying to use the clout in ways to create multiple business lines outside of just advertising. And I'd love to get your point of view, man. You're a creator in your own right across Instagram. You not YouTube yet. Are you on YouTube?
I am. It's early days in YouTube though. Only like
Yeah.
about 5K subscribers now. So
Yeah, yeah. But you've written a book, you run multiple podcasts, you're on Instagram, you're on Twitter. How are you seeing this, world sort of collide and turn and tumble?
So media's gone into, especially the online media space now, is all about distribution, right? Is that how
Hmm.
wide are you distributed? And I feel the problem was that when you looked at a niche, you would always assume that niche meant you only focus on that audience. But what you actually have to do is, if about 10 to 20% of your audience is your specific niche, that people might discover you for different things. You got to use the tools of the algorithm. And most modern creators, unlike pre-digital era creators, understand data, understand what works. Look at analytics and tweak stuff around, right? Like for me now,
Hmm.
it's second nature to look at analytics on a specific piece of content you put out on YouTube or Instagram or even LinkedIn and say, okay, let's tweak this around, let's move this a slightly different way and see if it works. And
Yeah,
the more and more they're doing that, they're realizing what audiences react to, what audiences are engaged with, which then you can easily kind of connect it to what they might want to buy. And
yeah,
most successful creators, if you talk to them, they know that not more than maybe like 5-10% of your audience at max is going to buy stuff from you. But as long as you have that 5-10% and the scale of your 100% is large enough, you can really do well and build multiple chains. And most of the most successful ones have also, like if you look at Mr. Beast and Red, he's not trying to run that business himself. He's
yeah.
focusing on his core competence, which is building distribution, building great content. Find people who can build these pieces and do them right, like how Kim Kardashian's kind of got into this space, right, with her whole VC fund kind of becoming came to news last week. Is it PE fund or VC fund?
It's a VC fund, yeah. But it's been one of the co-founders slash managing partners is a XP guy from Carlyle Capital.
Yeah. And And that's the model, is that you focus on what you're really good at, is to really scale up content, understand the metrics, and you've taken away the age old scenario of, okay, you got to go to the media companies to kind of scale out on the media perspective, even if you have a content thought process. Your focus as an entrepreneur, as a creator, is to focus on the product, but here, no, you are focusing on the media. You
Yeah.
can find partners to do the product with. So it's kind of flipped in that sense for a creator today, and that's the
Yeah.
great opportunity. It's a lot more fun for the creators also, right? Because you can just create content and kind of scale it up, and the logistics and the actual product work, you can work with clear cut experts in that space.
Experts, yeah, yeah. No, I mean, not to bring the story back to like me or like us in this scenario, but that's actually literally one of the biggest reasons why we were very happy to pursue an acquisition,
Yeah,
because it's just you need to like play to your strengths. And I think especially especially if you're if you know that your moat and your skill set lies in building those distribution funnels, a lot of the work around operations can slow you down, because you know what I mean, there's a
yeah,
thrill that you get with distribution. It takes a very it's a very different mentality to engage a consumer versus just to like sell to
yeah,
consumers at large. But coming back to this, I think one central point which is a takeaway that every single startup founder can learn from creators is, I feel like future business models are going to be sum of parts.
yeah,
And the more you build your business knowing that your business will be a sum of parts, irrespective of what category your business may be. And if you look at like the Indian example, right, let's just pick up a company in fintech like Cred.
mm,
Everyone Cred doesn't have one business line, it has multiple different business lines. Obviously one may contribute more to your top line, other may contribute more to your bottom line, so on and so forth. But almost every single large company today is looking at multiple different revenue streams in order
yeah.
to build their capacity out. And some of the smartest and sharpest minds are just focusing on product as a way to accumulate users, and
Mm.
then sell multiple different things to the users, obviously that tie in very closely with the category that the product itself lies in. I know we've been yapping about this on and on, and I
But
can
there's actually one point on this story which we didn't cover. I think it's important, is that if,
hmm,
is the fact that if you look at TCG's investments in recent times, right, the ones who partnered to kind of create this whole capital piece with Mr. Beast, they invested into companies which are doing content with e-commerce connections. So
yeah,
Barstool Sports, sports media. Interesting side note: Call Her Daddy.
yeah,
The popular podcast kind of originated from that, but kind of broke off at some point of
sold
time.
to Spotify, yeah.
Spotify. Food 52 again started off as, okay, let's create content for around food, but it's very differently made from what regular food television media kind of created. Meat
Hmm.
Eater, which is uh, no surprise, we're guessing caters to carnivores, and Hello
Yeah.
Sunshine, which is a Reese Witherspoon's company, right? Again, focused on women creators, women stories. So
Hmm.
all of these have a singular track, which is that
Yeah.
they're doing focus on a specific audience, but it's not just that audience. That audience, like, I watch the shows and movies that Reese Witherspoon has done, but that core audience which she's tapping into for her piece is not just me. It's actually women looking for women's stories. So I feel there's so much we can learn from this to
Yeah.
understand the media landscape in today's world. So again, this can go
Hundo.
into a longer
Pick a
thread,
niche,
and maybe we'll
go
pick this up
deep.
in future
Yeah,
episodes.
absolutely. Let's do it.
And how long do you take on this? We've been talking a lot today. It's very good.
It's been a while,
Is
man. It's
it
been
your
a
return?
while.
Your return is making us
Oh my
yap away.
God, new energy. Whoop, whoop, whoop. 12 minutes to this story. We're at
Yes,
32.
jealous me. Do you want us to go for a break? Do you want us to continue on to the next story? We shall ask you. You're the boss. Continue. Okay, she says continue. Let's continue. Um, you wrote a thread on Twitter, which I found super interesting because I mean, it's like you went on holiday, but you didn't have to do research on retail, but you did research on retail while you were on holiday.
I
And
had
what
so
did you
much fun.
discover?
I'm not gonna lie. No, so what prompted this thread was obviously, as we all know, like the US is the mecca for all things consumerism. Like Americans can sell ice to an Eskimo, right? That's how
Yeah.
good they are at selling shit. In fact, it was really funny. I had like walked into a store, and obviously I was being my like Punjabi jat loud selfness, or like, once again I've walked into a store where I'm buying shit that I don't need, but it's just so cute, I'm going to pick it up. And like the store person started laughing because I follow that up with saying, this is Murica. And she's just
Yeah.
like, same thing happens to me. You literally walk into a place and everything just looks so good, you want to pick things up. But so America's obviously cracked all things consumerism, built on the back of capitalism. But this time around, when I went to stores, it was just this newfound respect that I had for not just like products and brands that are being built, but also ways in which these products and brands are being sold. And coming back to like Indian shores, right? One of the
Mm,
biggest debates that has taken place in the past 6 months has been what really is the future of D2C in India. Because
mm,
if you look at the number of brands that have scaled, it's a handful. So if you had to like analyze the brands that started out 8 to 10 years ago, and how many of them have actually become northward of $1 billion businesses, the number is fairly limited to your usual suspects, right? Like there's Boat, there's
mm.
Mama Earth, there hopefully Sugar Cosmetics breaks into that fold. But
And sugar is also not true D2C, actually more retail than D2C if you look at it.
I mean, none of these are true D2C. All of them are a mix of
Yeah.
like, I mean, if you like, Boat's 3% of their business apparently is actually direct to consumer. But
From their side, yeah.
I think, yeah, I think the thing that prompted this thread was, why is it so difficult for consumer brands to scale in India? And the problem is, so many investors have spent so much money on brands without really thinking through, okay, building a brand is not the tough part, but finding channels of distribution is what's hard. And in
Yeah.
India, everything is broken, right? Like retail is broken. You get out of Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, how many offline places do you even have to sell? If you literally
Mm,
get out of Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, what city can you point to saying that this city actually has a mall, or a more organized retail space that has been able to deliver on scale? What was
yeah.
HUL's magic trick? HUL's magic trick was freaking Kirana stores, bro. Like that's what they crushed, and that's why that business will last for the next 1,000 years, because they just got that distribution down to the T. And I think the actual opportunities in India, which is genuinely what this thread was about, the actual opportunities in India is to build more channels of distribution versus focusing on just building more brands. Because I think the problem that we have right now is there's just too many brands, but there aren't enough places for these brands to be sold. And that's really what the thread was about in a nutshell. But what are your 2 cents on this?
I feel at some point we've also kind of realized that while that this whole pandemic came in, everyone's like, okay, everything's only going to happen online, and just like taking a macro point of view, even out of D2C, right? Work will only happen on online and from home. Buying will only happen online. I feel the only thing we moved entirely online to a large extent has been UPI payments. Let's be honest. That is the
Yeah.
one predominant factor that, like, when I leave the country, I'm like, oh my God, why do they not have UPI? Like, that is the one thing we should really export to the world and like get rid of credit cards altogether is my POV. But
Yeah.
and I think that's the core insight here is the fact that people have gone back to retail. A large part of the consumer set still buy from kirana stores, regular stores. They want to kind of go to the shop and do that stuff. It's this balance of what you're selling online, where are you selling online, meets this. What is the experience that is actually pulling people to a store? The same way, what is the experience of pulling people to a theater? Like, why is Brahmastra doing well versus some of the other movies? Like, Brahmastra is a movie people know they have to watch in a theater because of 3D, because of special effects and all that stuff. So what it's made it to is that you need to now work doubly hard to make sure your in-person experience is up, like I would say 10 notches,
Yeah.
because that's where true success lies. Versus the
Yeah.
online part will get you some amount of success. It's not like you won't, but will you hit peak scale? Will you be able to sustain yourself through any market trends, etc., that happen? You won't. I mean, for me, that's the big learning here.
Yeah, I think another thing that I'll add over here is, when you say differentiated retail experience, people come up with a lot of bullshit,
Yeah.
responses like, "Oh, should we bring AR to stores? Should we do like AI bullshit?" You
I
know what I
hate
mean?
that stuff. I
And
just
I'm just
like,
like,
I've made a lot of
"No,
money
bro."
doing that, but
Uh-huh.
I will still say it's
Say more.
that can't be the only
Say
solution.
more.
One of the
Yeah.
earliest years of Glitch, when we started off, we would do a lot of these, like, in-store activations. But But those are also like, I feel the ones which really worked were when you connected them to digital, but you didn't rely only on a digital experience in a physical
Yeah.
space. So like, I remember we like going to be like an old person here. So we literally asked people to saying, we had a guy instead of mannequin in a storefront, and we asked people to just tweet what songs they wanted him to play, and then he would play
Hmm.
those. But to
Yeah.
experience that, you have to be in the physical space. It made people come inside the store. That is
Hmm.
still fun, but if you're wearing a VR headset, you're not looking at the products in the store. So why do you
Yeah.
have the store?
Yeah, I mean, and continuing on exactly that, right? I think a lot of like basics just need to get much better here. So, like, I'll give you a very simple example. There's a retailer called Credo, Credo, and they
Hmm.
basically they're like a Sephora, but only for like clean beauty brands. And in America, they take like clean beauty brands very seriously, unlike over here, where because there's no like a
Regulation.
certification, anyone can call themselves a clean beauty brand, and things are done. So I walk into this store called Credo, and oh my god, their sales staff, I literally left with like a bill of like $200-300 because this chick just sold me everything, and she was so damn good. She, like, you know what I mean, like she knew all the
Yeah.
ingredients. She knew, like, she could tell what my what was irritating my skin. She gave her own examples. Like, she literally was, and as it turns out, she was an Indian girl, working at the Credo store, and she's just like, oh, I've been using this on my skin. This primer is great. This foundation's great. This is great for pigmentation. Made me try on all the products. I literally spent like 45 minutes in the store just talking to this, human in flesh and blood. And I think that's the thing about a lot of these retail experiences, right? It's just everything has and I'm not saying everything needs to be an experience. So for example, like grocery doesn't need to be an experience. It can, just get the job done of finding what you need from whatever aisle and checking out. But I think especially in categories like fashion and beauty and home and decor, there
Hmm.
is a massive opportunity to just make brand extensions much more like much more real for a consumer. Like, I'll give you a very simple example, and please shut me up if I'm getting over enthusiastic about this topic. But
Not at all.
Restoration
Continue.
Hardware, which is a large, Varun's checked out. He's just like, Jo bolna hai bolo, dil se bolo, Jai
Bolo,
Mata Di.
this
Uh,
is your ghar wapsi. Go for it.
and my Garbhapsi. No, but like, Restoration Hardware, which is a very popular home decor brand. So Restoration Hardware had been written off in the US in like the early 2000s. And this new like Maverick CEO has come in and basically taken the brand, very premium. In fact, one of the most popular places to eat in New York is the rooftop of Restoration Hardware, where
Hmm.
again, it's a home decor store. When you eat at this restaurant, everything in the restaurant can be bought literally,
Hmm.
at the store below. What I read recently was Restoration Hardware has actually launched their own hotel. And they've launched
Wow.
this like seven
Makes so much
bedroom
sense.
luxury hotel. But exactly, and that's my point, right? Like, when you hear examples like this, you're just like, dude, makes so much sense. But when you try to dig into finding more examples and references of people who are actually diversifying out of selling products in aisles, and who are reimagining what retail experiences can be like, the examples are so far and few in between. And just last thing, I think two brands in India that are doing a very good job of this. Number one is Fab India. I know over the past year and a half, they seem to have gone a little quiet, though they are planning for their IPO, from whatever I read online. But I love what Fab India has done with their experience centers, where there's like a Fab Cafe, there's a children's play area, and this, that, and the other. I think those experience centers are very good. And the other brand that I'd like to give a shout out to is Napa Dori.
Hmm.
I absolutely love their store in Dhanmel. They have a cafe, they have a event space, they
And even
have
if you've seen pictures of the store they opened in Dubai, as well as I've
yeah,
been to their store in London, which is much smaller.
smaller,
It's
yeah,
an experience. I agree with you. You walk in, and for me, their website is an experience, and the store was just like a extension and just like
double
hyper
whammy,
extension
yeah.
of that.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I think these two brands have done a kick-ass job. But yeah, man, if you are a VC slash investor slash, founder, I would really encourage you to think of newer ways of distribution, because I really think that's where the delta is going to come from. And that's the only way the next wave of consumer brands or D2C brands or whatever will come out.
You've actually given me also interesting idea, and I just want to pop in before we go for a break. Is that if you're a creator today and you're creating spaces, don't just think of the fact that your affiliate marketing is just this product you mentioned, but imagine the space you're sitting in, the furniture you have, everything. People are seeing your content and that being a part of it. Great idea for me because I'm building my studio, so I'm going to use this one. Is the
Ooh.
fact that you can actually buy the furniture in the space in which you are at. So there's
Oh
so
my
much
God, you're like
opportunity.
so welcome. So much inspiration from like one
Yes.
episode. I should go for holidays more often.
So if you're a furniture brand, you want to put your furniture on my sets,
Oh my
you can get in
God.
touch with me.
Yes, please
Had
do.
to do it.
More
Had to do
plugs,
it.
more plugs.
Had to
Plug your
do it.
book,
Had to
it's
do
right
it.
behind you.
I'm shameless. Yeah, I'm shameless. But
That's how you need to
on
be.
that note, before I go look for my shame, we shall take a break and be right back to Think Fast. Welcome back to Think Fast, where I have found shame and it is well intact. But nevertheless, whatever today, actually, all stories are largely focused on you getting enough things to talk about. So let's talk about Beco Vajradanti. No, what is that?
Yes.
No, this is Beco.
It is not, yeah, it is Beco. Though Vico Bajadanti is a great ad. I
I
still
love I
remember
love that
like
ad.
every
You'll never forget
single
it.
word. Yeah. Bajadanti, Bajadanti, Vico Bajadanti.
I like that guy who was like, those guys who can bite that, like that guy who
Yeah.
bites the ganna and then the
The
walnut. And I'm like, bro, next you're gonna take something really like, I mean, stone will get broken next, is what I was assuming, but didn't
Oh
happen.
my God. Yes, you're going full RRR with Vico Bajadanti. But in any case, the story
Had you
you
seen
guys are
RRR,
talking
by the
about,
way?
no, I
Random
have
digression.
not. You have
Please
asked me
watch
like
it.
6 times.
Please watch
Dude,
it.
Dhruv is obsessed with this movie. He tells everyone to watch this movie.
Okay,
It
I have
is
a
like
point of view.
wild.
I'm hardcore Telugu Gold viewer, and obviously I will want to watch it. But I have made people watch it who will never watch non, let's say, even like who don't even watch like Bollywood movies and largely watch international ones, and they've gone nuts watching it.
Oh my
Hollywood
God.
and the American market has gone crazy behind RRR. It is one of the biggest cult movies right now in the States. There are
Jeez.
YouTube channels focused on Star Wars that are doing entire deep dives into RRR and why it could actually be like a Star Wars movie. So it's putting it out there, worth a watch. But back to
Magic
Biko,
may happen, magic may happen, but back to
back to
Biko.
Beko,
So
Beko, Beko.
Biko, Beko, whatever it may be. So the reason why why we're even talking about this is because obviously an article came up about them raising $3 million in their Series A funding in a round led by Rukam Capital, along with Better Capital, Titan Capital, and a couple of other individuals. Long story short, it because basically like a sustainable kitchen, home, and personal care brand, and they sell a wide range of products, including tissue rolls, bamboo, facial tissues, dishwashing liquid, and the likes. But basically, their like USP is, come to us for all things sustainable, eco-friendly, so on and so forth. I have a lot of thoughts about this brand and their positioning. What are yours, Varun? What are yours?
Um, so I feel there is obviously a space for sustainable brands. I know a lot of people are building marketplaces around this. We've had a bunch of this stuff happen. Um, my thought is that there is definitely a consumer for this. I don't
Hmm.
know how big this consumer base is. I still feel it's pretty niche because if you look at just like compare people going after sustainable products to people who want cheaper products, the cheaper is obviously the biggest mass. But this is a
Hmm.
growing set, and I feel it is going to grow more and more as regulation kind of comes in around, like garbage bags, right? Simple thing, like have to be biodegradable. That's become a thing for a while now. Even
Yeah.
the whole plastic ban, which I still haven't seen how it's getting executed because I still get plastic everywhere in
Hmm.
most of those products. So it is definitely a growing market. The question is it a funded model or is it just a retail model? How do you compete at a broader level and kind of really scale up? Those are my predominant questions on this space, and I don't have an answer because the tendency to stay niche in this is very high unless you're a
Yeah.
marketplace, which
Yeah.
we've had good examples of. Right, the Better India, if I remember, which is the one.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're the
Better
ones trying to
India.
build that product. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. They had, in fact, they sold whatever that household clean products
yeah, cleaning liquid and all that stuff. Yeah.
to which one? Global Bees. It was
Hmm.
acquired by that roll-up whatever fund called Global
Yeah.
Bees. I don't know, man. I am like, I hear you about like, regulations may come up, but the thing with regulations coming up is they will not be like, what will their moat be in that case? Because guess what? Amazon Solimo will launch literally the same product, overnight, have better distribution. Like I said, like everything just keeps going back to distribution, right? So
Yeah.
if your distribution, if they're selling on other marketplaces, what is stopping those marketplaces from creating copycat products at even cheaper prices, which they can afford to do because, hey, better distribution. I think the second thing is, and my biggest like lesson from 7 8 odd years of building LBB is, there are some ideas that fundamentally may seem interesting and cool, but you need to constantly go back to the drawing board and think of jobs to be done. And I think values like sustainability, eco-friendly, are not active jobs that consumers solicit.
Mm.
I think they're good to have, they're like nice to have, but they aren't necessarily a trigger for purchase. And not to say that there aren't examples of brands that have built really great businesses within this space. So for example, there's this really cool brand based out of Australia called Who Gives a Crap,
Mm.
and they make
Nice.
toilet papers.
Love it. Love
And
it.
this Who Gives a Crap toilet paper brand is like a VC funded backed company.
Mm.
And again, you guys should check out their website, like super well done. Use again same thing, like your natural fibers, this that and the other, overpriced toilet paper, but seem to have obviously found like a market and a area of traction. I think brands like this, the only market that they can scale in are unfortunately like Western markets. I can
Mm.
imagine something like this crushing it in the US. Which you've seen happen time and time and again, right? Like brands like Le Labo, Byredo, both of which are perfume brands, Joe Malone. You know what I mean? Like think of any like very cool bougie niche brand that's come out. The appeal of these usually lie in like Western countries. I just think the audience for stuff like this in our country, and also the jobs to be the consumers who look at sustainability and eco-friendliness as an active job to be done in their day-to-day purchases, is just like too small and, sorry, but like inconsequential and niche. And throwing in another category into the mix, right? When we guys were working on Basecamp last year, and we were looking at companies to back, along with our VC fund partners, one space that our partners were bullish on was this clean detergents, floor cleaners category. So basically like the clean cleaners category. If you look at all the brands that launch these clean cleaners,
Mm.
right, whether it's Better India or any of these other guys, they've all gone into like multiple different spaces. They are now
Yeah.
launching like body washes, they're launching air fresheners, they're launching air purifiers. Like they basically just gone all in on multiple different subcategories within the larger sort of category of home. For instance, the point that I'm making is like, you know I I I I think it's important to start a business with a very strong niche need and customer segment in mind, but the niche can't be so small and esoteric that when you start scaling it, your business starts looking very different to what it did on day one.
Yeah.
And with all respect to the founders, because building any business is like freaking hard. I don't know, I'd urge them to maybe look at like B2B as a great way to scale and grow. Or for example, maybe invent something really interesting. Like, can you invent a new type of fiber or fabric that you can have a patent
Yeah.
on, and just that patent gives you like crazy multiples over a period of time. But that's my submission to this story. Sorry, I have like
Yeah.
hijacked this episode,
No,
but
no. So
please
I
jump
think
in.
I think the B2B part is interesting, right? Because I was talking to someone who one of my cousins who works for a company. I think, and he was telling me about how they really been supplying what you get your food in from Swiggy and Zomato, how to make
Hmm.
that part a sustainable piece. I think that's great. It's a great B2B solution, something they'll all pay for, because in some ways, if that's biodegradable, it's easier, helps them around the plastic issue that most of them kind of face. So I feel the B2B space is a great space to go to hit peak scale in this one, because
Yeah.
I agree, and like you said, it's unfortunate, but the point by which we will come to saying this is the predominant way that we are going to purchase things, or predominant kind of product we'll purchase, will either happen if the government bans the other stuff, which is the cheaper stuff,
Hmm.
or if we can kind of scale economically, which is, I would feel, the tougher one, to that level where, okay, now this is what we're, the reason why buying is this, because cost
Hmm.
is still the primary factor. How much you're paying for things is always going to be upfront for a large part of the population. So I agree with you. B2B has to be the way to go, or you figure a smart niche for yourself and kind of scale up with that. But yeah, I the consumer base is too small. As much as they might say
Yeah.
that that I think they're saying that 60%, 67% of the urban youth in India want to opt for sustainable products, provided the same cost as regular products or even
Yep.
cheaper. That's the core
Yep. Yep.
part.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Speaking of cost,
120% yes.
speaking of cost, Adobe just acquired Figma for just $20 billion. That's billion with a B.
Loose
Just
change. Loose change.
arguably the biggest, I feel, one of the biggest acquisitions in recent times. Right, 20 billion. That's another
A
level
shit ton of
of
money.
numbers.
Yep.
Their stock went down right after this. I think what went down about 15 to 18%. Right after this purchase happened. So obviously the markets kind of said, okay, how do you pay this much? Because just last year, Figma was valued, when they did their last round, was valued at 10 billion, which means
Hmm.
they're literally within a year. And last year the market was great across the world, right? People were funding things. Now you've gone from like 10 billion valuation in a good market to buying them
Hmm.
for 20 billion in what is not necessarily the best market. And I'm guessing that's where the dip happened. But I have a lot of stuff to say about this, but just like early thoughts.
So I have nothing to say about this. And this is the part of the show where I
Yes,
will
I
be
chose the
mute.
topic, but only I will talk.
Yes, Queen. Well done. Double thumbs up to you. So please jump in. Tell us more about this deal. I'm a big Figma fan, though. We use it
Yeah,
extensively, and I just think the software and the product
yeah,
is great. But all
yeah.
yours, sir.
So Figma, in a sense, did one thing, right? Took something which was creating web apps, and everything else, and putting it online, giving it almost a browser-esque experience. And if you look at Adobe, where they started from the software piece, right? Where you buy a software, you download it, you have that. Because look at Microsoft, look at Adobe. They were always like, buy the software, you want an upgrade, you have to buy the software again, to then move into subscription models. But largely, have they been able to transition, let's say, a Photoshop seamlessly to the web? They haven't. They've tried. They've done that whole app piece, which kind of disappeared. I remember like what, there was going to be a Photoshop app for the iPad, which didn't really work. And then somewhere Canva kind of came in and took that part of it. If you look at that market as well. So what they've been doing in recent times, Adobe has been acquiring companies that have really got the new age way of creation right, and just like acquiring them. And but this is like a massive deal, right? And you look at just the volume of it, it could mean a few things. I was listening to an interesting conversation about this on the All In podcast, which I know you're not a big fan of, because some of the points of view and just the personalities are a little polarizing, and I agree on that front. But there was an interesting point that was made, is the fact that this is a great way to take a company that is almost like a competitor, and instead of doing a merger, you're doing an acquisition that is structured in a way where it's a win-win for both. So this might not necessarily be just an acquisition. It's a way to kind of bring them into the fold, without having too much of those larger merger problems, because mergers are more tricky to do than acquisitions.
Hmm.
And this is, if I know right, this is yeah, it's half cash and half stock, which makes it easier to do in this sense as well. Which means only half the value is stock.
Yeah.
So it's I feel it's a structuring practice, and it didn't come to me till I heard about this on All In. But in that sense, if you look at what Adobe's been doing in recent times, look at a company like Frame.io, right? Frame.io they acquired, if I remember right, in 2020 or 2021. Frame.io became this almost like this godsend for anyone working in video production, because what it did was it took the production process, which is very manual, and took it online. So let's say you send a video edit to someone and you want to say, okay, I want changes. You would say, okay, at this point of time, change that. Frame.io allowed you to take a video and almost like Google Docs, mark out specific points in frame and say, just change this. So you're putting comments into a video the way you do on a Google Doc. So imagine how fast you can make changes in a video using that. And obviously, they figured a way to add that into like live production processes, and I can geek out on that front a lot because I'm huge fan of that of the product. They got acquired by Adobe as well, and they've plugged it into everything from everything that Adobe has from their software front, right? Which is Premiere Pro, etc. So if you see the world they're building, they're taking new age products, bring them into the fold. New age in the sense they're web first, digital first, and they're getting them enterprise consumers. And Figma already has a huge enterprise consumer base, but this will just like give it like so much more scale. So I guess it's a win-win in the long term. The price tag could be, I mean, could create this kind of issues, but I feel this has been a smart move in the long term for them. So my long description of the Figma Adobe thing is done.
Yeah, I was saying one additional point, which you just mentioned. I was talking to someone who works at Adobe, and they actually a really interesting thing that came up was different companies have different cultures, right? So, for example,
Yeah.
like Amazon is a very a build versus buy. It seems like Adobe has this like very like interesting culture of wanting to buy and add more to their stack versus necessarily assuming that they have the in-house expertise to build everything top to bottom by themselves. All types of companies, all types of strategies, but I love to see this, man. I love to see this general way of buying, working more collaboratively, bringing into the fold folks who understand certain niches that Adobe may not have the experience for,
Yeah.
but really interesting contrast in cultures.
Yeah, and what Adobe gets the best is to really work with large corporations, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember me
Distribution. We should call this episode the distribution episode. They get
exactly.
distribution top to bottom.
Like I remember a couple of years back, I had put a requisition in to try and get Frame.io for my team. I had
Hmm.
Glitch, and it was going through a process because if it's not globally impaneled, it becomes trickier to get into larger corporations. They got acquired by Adobe. That process happened super quickly, right? So I was like, thank God they got acquired to get the software faster. And I think that's what happened to a lot of people. I'm guessing it's going to with Figma as well. It'll be. I'm guessing they don't have that roadblock, but
Hmm.
it'll just like they can just add those pipes in. They don't have to invest into that part because Adobe already has that. And yes, this is going to be interesting. But it is time to go for a break, and we'll come back with recommendations. You have come back from the America, so what are you recommending? We will see. I am still here in the India. Actually, you're also back. So anyway, we shall figure a recommendation. But on the other side of this break, while I think about it. Welcome back to Think Fast, where it is recommendation time. What are you recommending? What is one of many things you're recommending?
Ooh, so I have two recommendations. One, which I already mentioned in the beginning of this episode, which is Yvon Chouinard's book called "Let My People Go Surfing." I read this book like I think 4 or 5 odd years ago, and he has this one line which is stuck with me. Right, he wrote something along the lines of, "I wanted to build a great company, not a big company," and that line really stuck with me because like especially within the ecosystem, you're so obsessed with like scale and hypergrowth and like blitz scaling and this, that, and the other, but he just broke it down so like simply and eloquently. But long story short, I think that book is great, and it's very counterintuitive to the usual blitzscaling bullshit that people keep propagating. The second recommendation that I have for those of you who like all things beauty and skincare and more, please do check out Credo Beauty. I think really well done platform, website, and obviously their retail stores that are in the US. But there's this a brand that I found thanks to that awesome salesperson at Credo Beauty called EXA. And for those of you ladies and gents who have very sensitive skin and like using clean products, their primer and their foundation is aces. I cannot believe I have made a beauty recommendation. I'm a transform woman, but that's what happens when retail experiences are great. So those are my two recommendations for this week. What about you, brother?
What am I recommending? What am I recommending? I actually went back to a book I hadn't read in a while. It's called Sacred Hoops. I've kept it here. Ready? It's called
Oh,
Visual Appeal,
someone hasn't promoted their own book this episode. Shocker,
which is right
shocker,
behind me. It's called
shocker,
Everything's on a
shocker.
Syllabus. It's still on Amazon and doing well and
Oh
still selling
no,
and getting
I
reviews.
poked the bear. I poked the bear.
Yes.
Yes, but what is this
So
book
Sacred
called?
Hoops is actually a book by Phil Jackson, the legendary NBA coach, like literally behind the Lakers, the Bulls, and so many stories. But this is actually super interesting. It's basically he talks about his own philosophical, like the things that really helped him drive the teams towards where they were. It's super interesting. It's also not very typical. I feel we're picking non-typical books this
Hmm.
week to recommend, but check out Sacred Hoops. It's it's interesting to see that someone who kind of built teams which really won the way they did but his thought process is so so interesting in terms of how he actually made that happen from this kind of like a philosophy, and like almost like it's mindfulness, compassion, stuff like that which he talks about. So great book to read. And the other one I want to recommend, guys, you got to listen to the new Divine track. I have been tripping on Gunegar since it came out yesterday. It is what a legit banger of a track and a music video. I am obsessed. True Indian global superstar in every right. If you see that video, it's just going to like it's blown my mind. And as always, I have a favorite line, but I will not try to say it. And Suchita's unplugged her mic at some point. Yes, this is the best way to do it. Yeah, अच्छा बड़ी बात कर रही थी आज वापस आके देखो क्या हो गया तुम्हारे mic के साथ.
Can you say something?
I have said
Say
lots of things
something,
about you.
fool. Oh,
Can you hear me?
I
Can you hear
can't
me?
hear you. Fuck this shit. One sec. Oh, one sec. Audio. No.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Now speak.
Can you hear
Now say
me?
something.
Can you hear me?
What the
Hello,
fuck
hello,
is wrong
hello,
with
hello,
my
hello, hello.
systems? I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Okay,
Mic,
guys. Since
speaker.
Suchita has lost her
Fuck,
audio,
bro.
I am officially going to say
What is
toodles
going
on her
on?
behalf while she's figuring this stuff out.
Oh my god, what is going on? I literally can't hear you.
We can hear you, but we can hear you.
Wait. Jesus. But I can't hear you guys.
Because you've not put your earphone in.
One sec. Yeah. I heard that. I saw that. Let me try rejoining. I checked the settings, bro. Settings are totally fine. I don't know what has happened to this. It
Chalo,
says
go out
mic,
and come back in.
speaker, external. Now say something.
Hello, 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 hello.
Jeez Louise, what has happened? One second. Okay, let me come back.
Gentlemen.
Oh my god, I can hear you now!
Yes.
Yay!
I said lots of things about you.
Oh, what did you say? I didn't hear
Did you hear my
anything.
recommendation or not?
Yeah, I heard Phil Jackson, and he is a Lakers coach, and after that, I couldn't hear you anymore.
Oh, you
But
didn't
you
hear my
went on
second
this.
recommendation.
No, what did you say?
Okay. And my second recommendation, guys, is this banger of a track called Gunegar, which Divine just dropped yesterday or a couple of days back. It is so good, like legitimate, like this is like one of the most powerful tracks I've heard in a while come from the scene. It is just a banger. Watch the video. Video's great. Like read the lyrics. The lyrics are like on point. It is like, side note, I listen to a lot of music, so for me this track is like
Amazing.
it's a scene. It's a scene.
Wow. Oh my God. Look at you pretending to be Gen Z. You've used the word banger and it's a scene. It's a scene. Only as a 40-year-old boomer, just to remind you.
I'm very with the music space, by the way. If you just don't know that about me.
Oh my God. Surprise.
Yes,
Surprise.
yes,
But
yes.
this was fun, man. It's good to be
Yeah.
back. Yeah. And
Yes.
Varun, now you have to come to Delhi because now I have Terramana tequila.
Yes, I'm coming to Delhi.
Only
I'm
for
supposed to come for
that.
something. Yes, only for that. I'm coming to Delhi. For
Do
Cherry
it.
Tequila, I
Book a
shall come
flight
and we shall
right
record.
now.
Yes, we shall record
IRL.
there. Yes, exactly. Because I don't think you're coming to Bombay anytime soon.
I just may, but you never know. You may pop another child while I'm there.
Vishnu wants your mic a little
And
closer.
we won't. Bro, I am not using a mic. I'm using this, Vishnu. This is what I'm using. We are plebs today. I apologize profusely for this plebeian
Suchita's
behavior,
mic
but
has
here
gone
we
for a
are.
toss, guys, but we have continued because this is our episode back. And it's time to say toodles. Toodle, guys. We'll see you guys again
Toodles!
next week
We
where
will
more
see
things drop. And
you.
we literally had one more story which we moved to next week because we spoke so much. So we will pick
Yes.
that one up next week as well.
Bye.